Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Inner Conquest, the world's greatest modern metaphysics channel. I'm your host, Jacob Edens, and today's episode is going to be legit. So, what we're going to talk about today is telling a new story and how telling a new story affects not only who you are currently, but future events and also changes past events as well. So, when we look at reality, right, where do we live? We live in a universe. What is a verse? If you have a chorus, you have one verse, you could call that a universe, right? So the universe is one big verse. What would a verse in a choral type of setup be? It could be the tone of Om. So within one verse, one Om sound, everything is included in that sound. So when we start to create a new type of reality within a universe, one big verse that contains all the verses, what do? Well, we take many verses, also known as tones, right? So if you hit a gong, it's a dong, a tone. What we do is we assign labels to those tones, which are words to, you could call them vowels, A, E, I, O, U, right? The different labels of letters or words we assign to these tones allow us to construct sequences of tones within one big universe. So we pull small aspects of the universe and we sequence them over and over and over again. You think about your DNA, it's a sequence of repetition. And that's how we structure a reality, is through repetition of different tones over and over and over again, right? So when we look at our subconscious mind and our conscious mind is 5%, our subconscious mind is 95%. What our conscious mind does is creates and focuses on the different things that it wants to basically bring into reality. The subconscious mind is impressed through the repetition and intensity of those tones, of those emotions, and externalizes that into our world for us to basically experience. So when we tell a new story, stories are essentially cheat codes to reality, because when you start telling a new story, the vibrations associated with those words are harmonizing with the universe and activating law of attraction to meet those things at certain specific scales of frequency. So if I tell a story that says, my life sucks, I have a bad day every day, and every day gets worse, and I think that I'm going to explode, that is a certain story, right? And that you can feel the energy of that story. If I tell a story that is, I'm the greatest person that's ever lived in the entire world, I'm confident, I'm crushing it, everything is going my way, I am the man, that has another type of tone and frequency. Now, law of attraction doesn't really care about the words. The law of attraction just listens to the frequency with which it was emitted, right? And what that does is it goes, okay, cool. This is what they're activating. Let's show them more of that. This is what they're activating. Let's show them more of that, right? So law of attraction can be your worst enemy. It can also be your best friend, because it is mindlessly showing you. It doesn't mean that it's not intelligent, but it's not possessing its own will in terms of what it wants to show you. It's just sending you things that are in alignment with whatever your frequency emission is. So when we tell a story, it's not to gaslight ourselves. It's not to make something not happen. It's to change the frequency resonance with which we're emitting these patterns that the universe can lock onto and respond to. So when we look at things like present moment awareness, if you're aware in the present moment that you are feeling, thinking, and telling a certain story, reliably and consistently, you can see that your world frame will kind of match whatever that general vibe is, right? So instead of going external and trying to fix all of the byproducts of those, results of that type of frequency, we want to go to the causation of everything and go to that root frequency and be able to change and make that frequency exactly what we want. Because once we control that root frequency, we control the mechanism that law of attraction is responding to, right? Many people try and go and change the law of attraction or the law of assumption, but it's really about understanding what you're targeting with your mind, right? Because you're a finite being within an infinite world, which means that you are focused, which means that focus is defined as selective ignorance. So whatever you're putting your attention on, you're ignoring everything else, right? So instead of trying to fix something or fight something, you simply want to take your attention away from what is unwanted and put it on wanted, because through that focus, you're unaware of this and it starts to dissipate because you're not activating those vibrations, which means law of attraction is not bringing you specifics in relationship to whatever that frequency was that you're emitting. So by putting your attention on something new, you're activating that. And when you put it on a new story, you're activating that as well. Now, what you may notice is because once you occupy a state of frequency, if you're emotionally charged with the state has bound itself to your consciousness, right? That's why people become addicted to things, is because they're emotionally involved with something, right? If you have your mother call you and say, I don't like you, I never want to talk to you again, you're the worst person ever, you'd be like, oh my God, what's happening, right? If a stranger calls you and goes, you're the worst person ever, I don't want to talk to you ever again, you'd be like, all right, weirdo, bye. The difference between those two things is that you're emotionally bound to one and you're indifferent to the other, right? So when we look at unfavorable states, what we want to do is we want to unemotionally bind ourselves from them. And we want to become completely indifferent to them, right? So when we become indifferent to a state, think about it from this perspective. If somebody's in debt, and there's a millionaire in debt, and then there is a person who has no money who's in debt. The person who has no money's in debt, they're like, oh my God, this is going to get bad. This is going to get bad. Oh no, it gets worse, and just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. A millionaire, even if they lost all their money, they're like, dude, I know how to make millions of dollars. Like, yeah, maybe I have $3,000 in debt, but that's nothing compared to what I can earn. Like temporarily, this is going to be solved, right? They're indifferent to it. Their focus is on a bigger reality. So oftentimes, instead of fixing specifics, we want to just ignore that and think so much bigger than the problem, because if we can think bigger, we can put our awareness on what we really want. And that is really the root of true freedom. If you're able to become indifferent to external circumstances on command or past events or negative expectations, if you can become indifferent to those things, they cannot grab you with emotion and hook into you, right? So when you're free, what does that mean? Well, what's the opposite of being free? You're caged. How do you get caged? Well, you could get caged by a state of consciousness that emotionally has its talons in you, right? So every time you wake up in the morning, you're like, I'm fucking depressed, right? That's a state of consciousness that has its hooks in you. So how do you become not involved with that state of consciousness? Well, you go, well, oh, I'm indifferent. That's just a word I keep repeating, right? And it doesn't mean that state of consciousness is going to completely leave you overnight, but you begin to not react to it and just not care. You're like, nah, you're like, no, I'm a really happy person. No, but seriously, right? You start to reorient your mind to what you want instead of trying to dwell on the problem and or fix the problem, because through dwelling in and or on the problem, you're activating problem-based vibrations, which exponentially grow problems. So problems are good in that they create solutions, but you want to recognize a problem and then you want to shift your awareness to what it looks like as if it were solved immediately, right? You don't want to ever feed problems because they're bottomless pits. You never get to the end of it. So you want to find solutions, and then you want to find why your life is better because of that solution. And now every type of unwanted non-fulfillment reality becomes a catalyst for a life upgrade, right? And within that is assigning meaning to things, right? We have events happen, but they are objectively meaningless until we prescribe or ascribe the different meanings to them, right? It's like the old story where it's like two twins were born to an alcoholic father, and one of them became an alcoholic, and they asked him, why'd you become an alcoholic? He goes, look, my father was an alcoholic. How could I not become an alcoholic? And then another one became a billionaire, and they go, well, how'd you become a billionaire? He's like, well, look what my father did with his life. How could I become anything else but successful? I could never end up like him. It's about your value tags that you put on things that will shift you into certain lifelines. So once you understand that mechanism, your goal is to always prescribe valuable meanings to things, right? Doesn't mean what happened is cool. It just means if you want to get on a good lifeline where that benefits you and puts you closer to your dream reality, you have no choice other than to prescribe meaning as to how that benefited you and or made you better and or made you stronger, smarter, sexier, whatever you want to put on it, right? That's the creative choice that you have. But you want everything to serve you. You don't want anything to steal your energy, trap you, claw you. You want to be the master of your domain and that you get to describe how the meaning affects you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave comments with videos that you want made. Additionally, the link tree has coaching for voice calls, emails, and text message support. So check that out if you want to work one-on-one with me. And the most important thing that I have to say today is go forth and conquer. I'll see you in the next one.